What does freedom mean to you? Does it mean the freedom to choose? The freedom to have a family and raise your kids according to your own values? What about living a wild, adventurous life, experimenting with music, relationships, or art? What does freedom really mean? What if freedom meant something that only a few Americans still understood? What if it meant that your choices and your values were set by you, rather than by some politician in a far-off capital? Some people think we're only free to choose to live exactly how they live, by their moral code, or their narrow worldviews. But if liberty means anything, it means that you, and you alone, have the power to exercise your rights to which the laws of nature and nature's God granted you. It's time to put these principles back into action. It's time to restore the American dream, activate in our communities, and take our country back. It's time to wake up, America.
Good morning. It's 7:01. It's time to rise in freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. Welcome to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. Tony Lovasco will be joining us this morning on the tax cut that wasn't. Missouri lawmakers gather for a special session on a tax cut, but Lovasco says that this tax cut was already in place. So what's the deal? We'll talk to him here in just a minute. Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, says that the feds confiscated his cell phone while he was at a drive-thru at Hardee's. Who goes to Hardee's anymore? What were they looking for? And is there going to be a discount code for Hardee's in our near future? U.S. Marine Corps veteran Paul Curtman joins me this morning at 7:35 to talk about an independent commission recommending that a Confederate memorial be taken down at Arlington National Cemetary. Has this woke nonsense gone too far? And from fried Oreos to bald eagles to obesity, what's the most American thing ever? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. And at 8 o'clock this morning, Camellia Peterson joins me to discuss the controversy surrounding the new live-action remake of The Little Mermaid. No, they didn't get a real mermaid to do this. The film's trailer received over 1.7 million dislikes in just under a day on YouTube. Camellia will break down the controversy. And at 8:30 this morning, Will Duffield from the Cato Institute joins me to discuss his new policy analysis about how government bullies social media into cracking down on free speech. All that and more on the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. First up on the show this morning, my guest, Tony Lovasco, joining us in, I guess somewhat in studio, but outside of the studio, but live and on camera. Good morning, Tony, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Good morning, Austin. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here, Tony. Thanks so much for coming on today, and we're glad that we could have you on camera. I guess you came into town very briefly yesterday, so give us the scuttlebutt. What's happening here in Jefferson City while you're out of Jefferson City?
Well, not much just yet, Austin. So we met yesterday for a very procedural reason. Constitutionally, we're required to meet for veto session to override the potential vetoes of the governor. Of course, there were several this year. And we gavelled into veto session and then immediately adjourned until next Wednesday. We then waited about 45 minutes and we gavelled into special session that the governor called for the agricultural tax credits, as well as this promised large tax cut, income tax cut. And then we immediately gavelled out until next Wednesday. So we did absolutely no work yesterday whatsoever. However, hope is still alive. There are still negotiations happening behind the scenes. And while it is very unclear how things may turn out, it's not over yet.
Well, I guess that's good to hear. But the last time that we spoke to you, Tony, you were telling us that this whole special session was supposed to be about tax cuts, as it's been, touted by the governor and by his cronies, but that the problem was that this was a tax cut that was already in place. Can you help us understand that a little bit more? I'm still unclear on that.
So the governor proposed that we basically take the income tax rate down by about 10% roughly, from where it is now to, I believe, 4.8%, which ultimately is already going to happen. There was a Senate bill that was passed in, I believe, 2014, Senate Bill 509, that basically created several different automatic triggers, where if Missouri's economy hit certain benchmarks, every year when it's reassessed, if we've met these benchmarks, there would be an automatic step down in the income tax rate until it eventually gets to 4.8%. What the governor is proposing is that we basically do away with those triggers and bring the tax cut all into force now, which is good. Then people don't have to wait another 5 to 7 years for it to take full effect. The controversy and where it became a little sticky is that in exchange for this acceleration of the tax cut, the governor would like an extension of a large agricultural subsidy program that's in place currently. He'd like it to be bumped up for another 6 years. A lot of us small government types are not a big fan of tax credits that favor a particular industry. We see that as manipulation of the marketplace. We're kind of fighting that. The good news is that we heard from our leadership in the House earlier this week that the plan is actually to split those measures into two separate bills. So rather than, as the governor proposed, voting on it as one large package, we'll have the opportunity to debate and potentially defeat the agricultural subsidies separate from the tax cuts. And that is ultimately going to be the question, is going to be, are we going to be able to reach an agreement on the tax cuts in whatever that may look like? It does look like the Senate and House leadership are considering something possibly larger than what the governor had proposed, which I think is fantastic. However, if we don't get to an agreement on that, there is the possibility that they'll bring up the agricultural subsidy bill and then go home. And so the concern that many of us will have is that we don't have the wool pulled over our eyes with the big tax cut at the last minute once a deal's been made on the agricultural credits. So it's a lot of moving parts, Austin.
Yeah, no kidding. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to State Representative Tony Lovasco here in the state of Missouri, talking about a proposal for a accelerated tax cut here in the state of Missouri and some cronyism that's par for the course typically in government. Tony, I saw a story the other day here that said that one of your colleagues, Representative Ron Hicks, was proposing that the governor try and cut off the marijuana ballot initiative at the pass. Essentially, what's happening here, for those who don't know, is that Missouri is going to have a ballot measure this fall in November for us to vote to legalize recreational cannabis here in the state of Missouri. A lot of libertarians and pro-legalization people are against it because of the cartel that it sets up with the licensure scheme, as well as all sorts of new possible crimes that it would create. So my question to you is, Tony, is Representative Ron Hicks going to get his wish? Is there any chance of something like this happen where the legislature might be able to introduce something that could get passed by the governor before we could go to vote this November?
It doesn't look like it. So the governor has specifically denied our request to expand the call to special session to include that particular issue. There's some conflicting opinions as to whether legally we can do it anyway. The governor does have some constitutional authority to define that special session's boundaries and what kinds of legislation we can consider. It is arguable that the marijuana reform bill is a tax bill in the sense that it does create and levy some taxes on this new product. It's a bit of a stretch. That being said, technically speaking, the General Assembly can kind of pass what it wants, and the governor can then kind of decide if he wants to sign it or let it go. There's nothing keeping him from actually expanding the call to session after we have session, which is kind of interesting. I didn't realize this, but once he calls the special session, we've got 60 days to kind of figure everything out, and then it has to draw to a close. However, if the legislature brings up a totally unrelated bill and passes it, both houses, and sends it to the governor's desk, he can then expand the call to session and then immediately sign that bill, and that would be completely legitimate. So we are hoping that will happen. To be honest, the Herculean effort necessary to get the votes to pass this in such a short period of time is difficult on on its own. Adding to that, the fact that the governor is not on board, it's a long shot. But we're going to keep trying as we can.
I mean, is the problem kind of like the old Baptist versus bootlegger thing? You've got good people like, your colleague Brian Seitz, who's a Baptist, and then you've got people probably who are, on the take from the cannabis industry here in the state of Missouri, and they know that they're going to get money because they'll be one of the very few politically connected institutions that will be able to get access to one of those licenses.
To be honest, I think that the biggest issue, yes, there's a lot of money behind it. And yes, a lot of that money comes from lobbyists that do donate to people. But there is just a lot of people in the General Assembly who just don't want to see their name behind a recreational marijuana measure. I think Representative Seitz is on that list for sure. He just has some objections to the concept of it regardless. And while I think he and many others would agree that the General Assembly putting something into statute is the proper way to go rather than this terrible ballot initiative that's going to shove a bunch of stuff in our Constitution, a lot of them are still uncomfortable, signing their name next to the idea of putting that reform into statute themselves, even if maybe they might be okay with someone else doing it. So I understand that predicament. These guys got to get reelected in districts that are very much against these reforms. That being said, there is a lot of folks that are very personally against the concept of legalizing marijuana that are willing to talk about voting for this measure just because they realize how terrible this ballot initiative is. And so, it's possible. I think the votes are there. I've talked to a lot of folks. The real question is whether or not it's going to be feasible to actually bring it up for a vote. And at this point, I'm not sure.
Well, if you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Missouri State Representative Tony Lovasco. Tony, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about some cultural things. No longer, on the radio in Missouri. So while I do talk about Missouri issues because a lot of my listeners are from there, this is the Wake Up America show. So we talk a lot about more national issues, and the culture war has certainly come into even more prominence, I think, today than it was when we were kids. When I was, a child in the 1980s, the culture war was mostly dominated by the Jerry Falwell types, social conservatives versus liberals. Abortion was one of the main issues that we talked about then. And while it's certainly still an issue today, we talk a lot more about movies and television and the impact that they have on young people. And one of the things I'm going to talk about with Camellia Peterson later in the show today at 8:09 is the Little Mermaid, the new movie that's coming out, the live action remake. I call it live action, but I guess there's no such thing as a real mermaid. And maybe that's just what you're going to say here when I ask you this question. But what are your thoughts on a Black Little Mermaid? Up, down, going to go see it, not interested, or, does it outrage you like it does so many others?
Well, I got to tell you, I was never a huge Disney fan as a kid to begin with. So,
What?
the changes to the source material do not offend me in the way that it probably would, someone who's a diehard fan.
I bet you're a
I can
Lord of
tell
the
you
Rings
this.
fan, though.
I haven't caught the new show. I have definitely heard some feedback. I will say, generally speaking, I am kind of frustrated with this concept of, digging back to the 80s and earlier for, source material to dredge back up to do remakes just because Hollywood is just too lazy to come up with original ideas. If in my mind, if you're going to revisit a property that a lot of people have a lot of real emotional attachment to, whether that be a Disney movie or the Star Wars franchise or any of these things, you have to be reasonably true to the source material, or you have to take it a different direction. You can't really split the difference. I think that Disney's been kind of confusing folks with a lot of these, supposedly live action, which, of course, it's all CGI anyway, but it's sort of live action films, in that they can't quite decide, are they going to do a shot for shot remake of the original, or they're going to just, do a different spin on things. They kind of do a little bit of both. And I think that's ultimately what's, throwing people for a loop. I think that the casting decisions and, the racial makeup of the stars, things like that, it's an easy thing to talk about, but I've heard just as many people complain about the, changing of the classic songs as I have the casting. So I think the moral of the story here is, if you're going to force a remake on people, you really got to actually have, some a basis to be in touch with your fan base before you can just, crank it out and expect them to start spending their dollars on you.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking to Missouri State Representative Tony Lovasco. We're talking about woke politics in Hollywood films. My wife, Stephanie is going to be joining me on the show tomorrow, and we're going to talk a little bit about nostalgia, because we've been watching the Cobra Kai series on Netflix, and I've done karate for like 15 years, and I'd be lying if I said that when I was a kid that the movie Karate Kid didn't inspire me. So when Cobra Kai came out, I was super excited to see it as an adult. And I got to tell you, Tony, the other day I was on Instagram, and I was watching one of my favorite Instagram accounts called Back to the 80s. And I was sitting there watching this guy who was about my age, maybe a little bit older, and he was showing off his Trapper Keeper collection. And he just looked so old, sitting there with his Trapper collection, going through all of his Trapper Keepers and stuff. And I love to reminisce and to wax poetic about my younger days. But I mean, there does seem to be in culture today almost an overemphasis on nostalgia. And, maybe that's part of what you were talking about when you were saying, oh, we're tired of people digging up old ideas. We need some new ideas and things like that. But I mean, there does seem to be like a yearning for, it's kind of like in Donald Trump's Make America Great Again, whether you're left or whether you're right or whether you're in the middle in this country, there does seem to be kind of like a yearning for the better days of old, if you will. What do you make of this?
Absolutely. I think that's part of the reason that there's been such frustration with a lot of these attempts at going back to that nostalgia well, which is, you can't recreate just part of somebody's childhood and expect them to get excited about it. It's almost offensive in a lot of respects when these companies will decide to take something that was a real part of your upbringing, a real part of what you remember from being a kid, and they decide that, like, well, you can have 20% of that, and then here, enjoy this 80% of this stuff you didn't ask for, right? I think if you're going to play on nostalgia, you're going to recognize that people want to go back for better or for worse to a certain era. You need to give them that. I haven't seen the film yet, but I got to tell you, everything that I've heard of the new Top Gun movie says that it gets the balance, pretty well right. It's not a shot for shot remake. It's not an attempt to just, kind of redo the original, but it brings the flavor and the feeling of the original film back. And that's ultimately what you got to do. I think the tough part here is, it is a different audience. You can't necessarily make money going exclusively to the people who, remember watching a film or a television show from 30 or 40 years ago. There is a new generation that you have to try to get butts in seats for. And so, that's difficult. And I think that's why, again, going back with maybe just come up with some new ideas might be the way to go. But I also understand, like you said, there's a huge market in people like yourself and myself that, do enjoy those properties and, can't quite resist spending a little bit of money revisiting them, even if we know we're going to be disappointed.
And we are so often disappointed. But I think that when I go and I see a Hollywood movie these days, it's not that entertaining. Even nostalgia. I saw the new Ghostbusters movie that they came out with maybe a year or 2 years ago, and I have to say, that was mildly entertaining, but again, heavy on the nostalgia. The thing about Top Gun that I thought was good was that it was really just focusing on entertainment. It didn't try and inject any kind of a political message or a statement in there, but it feels like, Tony, whether it's movies or television or pretty much everything that we see today, everything is political. Tony, why does everything have to be political? Why?
So, I will say this is funny. This is not really a new thing. Things used to be political as well. They were just a lot more clever about it and a lot more subtle. And it's always interesting to go back and watch older films that weren't quite as subtle and are doing some of the same kind of mistakes that films are doing now with kind of beating you over the head with things, and then watching how poorly they age. I remember I was watching The Living Daylights with Timothy Dalton, right, the old Bond movie, and in that movie, there's a scene where, they're in Afghanistan and, the Mujahideen come and save the day and like rescue Bond from the bad guy in this one this scenario. And in the movie, they're very much portrayed as the good guys. But, of course, not that much later, we'd be fighting them in a war for 20 something years, under a different name, of course, but it's the same people.
That's interesting.
And so it's funny to see today's idea of the politically correct thing that we need to jam down people's throats through media. The winds change, and all of a sudden it gets a little bit awkward when you revisit that and you realize that, well, perhaps that particular take wasn't the best one. And so in my mind, if Hollywood wants to get political, if the story really requires some kind of modern day allegory in order to make their point, and sometimes it does, at least be subtle, be clever, do it in the vein of the original Star Trek series, where you're talking about social issues, but the abstraction is sufficient that the viewer doesn't instantly realize, oh, yes, this guy is supposed to be Gorbachev, and this guy is supposed to be, it's much better when the viewer has to use their imagination to get to where you want them to be than when all of a sudden you've got somebody who's just a, carbon copy of Donald Trump with a different wig or something.
Tony, let me ask you something. Last question before I let you go. Is there anything that offends you, Tony?
I'm pretty hard to offend, Austin. I got to tell you, except for when it comes to government. Government offends me regularly. That's my weakness. So.
He said as an agent of government, Representative Tony Lovasco. Tony, this was a great interview. We can't wait to have you back on the show. Let us know when you're in town, of course, and we'll have you in studio. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Austin.
Thanks very much. That was good stuff. That was State Representative Tony Lovasco. I got to say, other than Tony Lovasco,
we are led by very, very stupid people. Very, very stupid people.
We are led by very
let it continue.
Stupid people. We cannot let it continue. That was our former commander-in-chief, President Donald Trump. Thank you, Donald Trump. Well, is Donald Trump going to run for president again? I think Mike Lindell hopes so. Is that why you got an FBI raid?
Donald Trump, if you can hear us, please.
This is Mike Lindell, audio from Mike Lindell in the line at the Hardee's. Here we are.
Donald Trump, if you can hear us, please. Donald Trump, please save me. Please save me, Donald Trump. Please. I'm asking you. Please save me. Please save me. Please get these people away from me. In dear God's name, please stop these people.
When we get back, Mike Lindell raided by the FBI at a Hardee's line on the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
It's morning again in America. Our country is prouder and stronger and better.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning. It's 7:25 in Jefferson City, Missouri, the heart of America. I'm Austin Petersen, and you're watching the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Text us this morning at 573-319-1586. We've got a lot of great stories and guests for you left to go. We're going to be talking this morning in just a few minutes to former Missouri State Representative and U.S. Marine Corps veteran Paul Curtman about a push to get rid of a Confederate monument at Arlington National Cemetery. You can text the show this morning at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Also, text me this morning, what's the most American thing ever? Send me a text. What is the most American thing ever? The least American thing ever that I can think of is this video that I have from Mike Lindell yesterday, who got nabbed at a Hardee's and had his phone seized by the FBI. Take a listen.
Today, the FBI, you're going to hear this, and you're probably already hearing it in the news. The FBI came after me and took my phone. They surrounded me at a Hardee's and took my phone that I run all my business, everything with. They could have just, what they've done is weaponize the FBI. It's disgusting. I don't have a computer. Everything I do have that phone, everything was on there. And they told me not to tell anybody. Here's an order, don't tell anybody. Okay, I won't. Well, I am. So.
This is Donald Trump. Take it from me. It's in your best interest to pick up the phone right now.
That's great stuff. That is such great stuff. Well, I can't help but laugh. I feel bad for the guy, but I just kind of can't help but laugh. I mean, it is a funny situation. Am I wrong here? I mean, Mike Lindell gets raided at a Hardee's. There probably isn't a fast food restaurant. What would have been a funnier fast food restaurant that he could have been, I guess accosted at, can we say? You can text the show at 573-319-1586. Camellia Peterson on the live stream says that, can we talk about how he said he doesn't have a computer? I guess that was kind of weird, wasn't it? But I don't know. I mean, he is a little bit old, but at least he's got himself a phone. Camellia Peterson says Arby's. Arby's would have been a funnier place for him to get raided. Why did he get raided is what I want to know. Lindell said that the search warrant was likely related to his claims about voting machines that were manufactured by the Dominion Company. He's been one of the foremost proponents of the theory that the election was stolen from Trump through the use of fraudulent voting machines. The search warrant was likely a part of dozens of subpoenas reportedly issued by the Department of Justice in connections to the probe in efforts to overturn the official results of the election. Dominion filed a $1.3 billion lawsuit back in February of 2021 over Lindell's accusations. Lindell said, I want Dominion to put up their lawsuit because we have 100% evidence that China and other countries used their machines to steal the election. Lindell said. Thank you for that editorial there from The Blaze, written by Carlos Garcia. We appreciate that one. So what do you think about this? Just another crackdown on free speech? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you. We've heard from Mike Lindell. There you go. Coming up next, U.S. Marine Corps veteran Paul Curtman to talk about the push to remove a Confederate monument at Arlington National Cemetery in Washington. We'll talk about that. Yes, boo, I know. We've got to go to break, but don't forget to send us your text at 573-319-1586, and I'll read them when I get back. Yeah, exactly. Lots of reasons to be happy here on the Wake Up America show. with Austin Petersen at wakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Austin's wife. I want to thank you all for watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Petersen's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Petersen's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupamericashow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion, delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Speaker Pelosi's husband Paul made a big investment in chips just before Congress votes on a bill that would give $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits to the chip industry.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. Do not come. Do not come.
Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know?
Good morning at 7:34 in Jefferson City, Missouri, the heart of Missouri and the heart of America. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Thank you for joining me today. My next guest is Paul Curtman, former Missouri State Representative, as well as a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, joining us to discuss how Paul Curtman joining me at 7:35 to talk about an independent. Paul, are you getting some feedback there? Are you hearing my voice?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just 1 second. Let's see if I'm hearing this audio in my background. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. Let me just transition. I'll be right back. For some reason, my audio, Paul, is feeding back into my ears. It's going to throw me off. Give me just a moment. I'm not sure where that's coming from. It's coming from Zoom, it sounds like. Paul, I'm going to have to...
It's coming from my end?
Yeah. All right, sorry about that one there. Having a little bit of technical difficulties. It seems like we might have fixed it, though. Joining us now, live and on camera, is former U.S. Marine Corps veteran Paul Curtman. Good morning, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Morning, Austin. Good to be with you.
Yeah, it looks like I'm getting that feedback again, Paul. Unfortunately, these things happen when we're dealing with this kind of technology. I'm going to transition back, and we're going to call you on the phone if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sorry about that one. All right, let's try that again. Good morning. Paul Curtman joining us on the phone right now. Paul, I think we got you. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm really glad to be with you this morning, Austin.
Yep, sorry about that one, though, but I'm looking forward to talking about this topic. An independent commission recommended that a Confederate Paul Curtman joining us on the phone right now. Paul, I think we got you. Thanks so much Cemetary. For those who don't know, there is a monument that... sorry about that one, though, but I'm looking forward to talking about this topic that is supposed to... An independent commission recommended that Paul Curtman joining us on the phone right now. Paul, I think we got you. Some of the figures on this monument. For those who don't know, there is a monument that... Sorry about that one, though, but I'm looking forward to talking about this topic that is supposed to... Let's try that again. Good morning. Paul Curtman joining us on the phone right now. Paul, I think we got you. Figures on this monument. What are your thoughts on this? There is a monument that... Sorry about that one, though, but I'm looking forward to talking about this topic that is supposed to... Let's try that again. Good morning. Paul Curtman joining us on the phone right now. Paul, I think we got you. Figures on this monument. There is a monument that... Sorry about that one, though, but I'm looking forward to talking about this topic that is supposed to... Let's try that again. Good morning. Paul Curtman joining us on the phone right now. Paul, I think we got you. When you look outside, you'll see Lincoln second inaugural stage but I'm looking forward to talking about this topic that is supposed to... Let's try that again. Good morning. Paul Curtman joining us on the phone right now. Paul, I think we got you. When you look outside, you'll see Lincoln second inaugural stage but I'm looking forward to talking about this topic that is supposed to... Let's try that again. Good morning. Paul Curtman joining us on the phone right now. Paul, I think we got you.
A monument in Washington, D.C. that they said depicted a slave kneeling to a white man. But it wasn't that at all. What it was it was a slave that was recently freed, and he was in the process of standing in front of the white man. And so that's not a statue you want to tear down. That's a statue where you want to recognize the symbolism there and what it really means. And so I think right now there's a huge knee-jerk reaction that's continuing to fall out in the woke wake of things like the George Floyd shooting or killing, or things like anything that Black Lives Matter tries to put in front of you, so that way they can continue to raise money and stock their portfolio of multi-million-dollar homes. It's really important that we understand what the real symbolism is here and not jump too quick. And especially when it's going to cost, in this case, it's going to cost us over $62 million to rename over 1,100 roads, ships, bridges, bases, and military equipment. And I think that we need to understand that it was all supposed to be done in a spirit of healing. And now what's being done is it's being ripped apart from us in a spirit of division.
And as history has gone on, Paul, people have kind of forgotten the way that the wounds that were created during the Civil War and what was done to try and heal those wounds. People are sort of out of touch from that time period in the United States, at the turn of the 20th century. As we went into the early 1900s, there were a lot of pushes to do things like I think that many of the Confederate soldiers were pardoned. I think even Robert E. Lee was eventually pardoned, but posthumously. And I don't understand why people, other than just a historical ignorance, why people can't understand that, like, we were supposed to do these things in a spirit of reconciliation. Do you think it's just historical ignorance?
I think it's a little bit of historical ignorance, but I think it's willful ignorance. And you would know this from your political experience. Certainly, I know this from having run 5 campaigns of my own, and just from working in talk radio and being around people that are political by profession. A strategy that people often use is they have to find ways to divide people. That way they can find their base, and they can pump that base up, and they can get money from that base. And that's exactly what we see here. I'm not trying to use Black Lives Matter as the only example. I mean, the Republicans and Democrats both do that. But if you're looking at social movements, Black Lives Matter has just been an expert at that. I mean, they've raised so much money. They've gotten huge amounts of money from some of the largest Fortune 500 companies in America, because they want to say that they're woke. They want to say that they're relevant too, that they understand social issues. But then when you turn around and you find out where's all that money gone, it hasn't gone to any inner city programs. It hasn't gone to police training. Instead, they're calling for police defunding. Meanwhile, they're using their funds to buy real estate portfolios, for the people who started the movement to live in. And so I think it does have to do with historical ignorance, but I think it also has to do with willful ignorance and taking advantage of people that don't know any better, or who haven't been taught the symbolism behind these statues or these gestures between the North and the South. And what it's doing is it's just actually driving the country in a direction that the veterans of the U.S. Union and the Confederate States never wanted the country to go after the war.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Paul Curtman. He's a U.S. Marine veteran. He's talking to us now about a story where an independent commission is pushing to remove a Confederate monument at Arlington Memorial Cemetery. What about the names of these bases, Paul? I mean, there is something a little strange that I personally that I find about the names of actual bases, military bases dedicated to people who fought against our military. But I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about us naming our helicopters like Apache helicopters and Chinook helicopters too, right?
Yeah, I think that there have been cases probably over time where, all of Congress might not have been involved. I mean, you see how Congress operates today. They'll just vote for something because their friends voting for it or because they don't want to be voting against it for whatever reason. So there are many reasons why they might have picked one person over another. I read a story recently about a base. I'm trying to remember where it was, South Carolina or Mississippi. And it seemed like they just kind of haphazardly arrived at a name of a Confederate general that in all reality might have been best not to name a base after. But the point being, though, is there are names that we've gotten in this habit of just naming things in order to honor people. And it's not always to honor the cause. It's not always to honor the cause. In this case, in America in particular, in the case of our country that had a civil war. And by civil war, people need to understand, like this, there were families literally out to kill each other. And it was such a terrible time for the country that the whole point in actually naming anything after anybody else from the South or for generals was really just as a gesture to say, hey, we can get over all of this. We can recognize that you guys fought and we fought each other. So, we're going to give you something just to recognize the service that you gave to your southern states. And you look at Robert E. Lee. Here's a perfect example. Here's a guy who said that he would free every slave in the whole country if it would prevent war. But nevertheless, because of the way the country was in the 1860s, and back in the 1860s, states pretty much ran everything independently with the exception of just the enumerated powers that are in Congress. So there was a lot more loyalty to the states. People saw their states as in fact, if you go back and read a lot of letters between these people all the way back to the founding fathers, whenever they wrote about their home state, they would often refer to it as their home country. And so people thought a lot differently about the power and the loyalty to their states back then than they do today. Today, it really just boils down to who your basketball team is. Back then, it had everything to do with protecting your freedom. And so you had a lot more loyalty to your state. And that's also something that we've lost and something that we should probably get back to and maybe begin to understand a little bit more about that. But the federal government acknowledged things like the Daughters of the Confederacy, the Sons of the Confederacy. And they had different ceremonies in the North and in the South as an opportunity to heal. And that's what people are missing the message. It's an opportunity to heal. It's an opportunity to just move forward from the past. But now the popular thing to do, the fashionable thing to do is to revisit the past and pick it apart, divide people. None of us were even alive back then, but we're using it to tear each other down and ruin each other's lives and cancel each other out. And a lot of this is just really being done for people that stand financially from it.
If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to former Missouri State Representative Paul Curtman. Paul Curtman is also a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. Paul, one of the conversations that we're having this morning is about how woke politics gets injected into everything. I don't know what you think about the new Lord of the Rings movie, or the new Lord of the Rings series, if you've seen that, or if you've seen some of the controversies swirling around the Little Mermaid. Are you tired of everything that Hollywood touches turning woke?
Oh yeah, I absolutely am. And I mean, when I saw an article just yesterday about the Little Mermaid, and like to me, I could care less what color the Little Mermaid is. I think most people do. But what bothers me though is when people decide to make decisions. Now we're talking, this is the entertainment world, and like I said, I care more about whether or not my neighbor's black cat got enough sleep last night than I do about what's going on in Hollywood. But I am bothered when people make these huge multi-million-dollar decisions, when people are making decisions of such important significance for them, and they think that they have to pander to a social justice movement in order to stay relevant. That's where I begin to have a problem, because then you have companies that make bad decisions. I mean, if you look at Coca-Cola, when they're going to move a baseball game from Georgia to Colorado because they think that Georgia passed a voter integrity bill that marginalizes minorities. Well, what was the decision that they made in order to protest the legislature in Georgia? They literally moved a baseball game from one of the highest density minority populations to a city that probably couldn't be more white. But they did this so that way they could get the headlines. And so when people begin to make these types of decisions, when people begin to make these types of decisions for those reasons, they often will make bad decisions.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing to watch as this culture unfolds over the next decade. Paul Curtman, former U.S. Marine, or I guess, once a Marine, always Marine, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and former Missouri State Representative. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your time this morning.
Right. Thanks, Austin.
Thanks, and have a great day. Well, sorry about all those technical difficulties that we're having there earlier. I don't know what happened. Every once in a while, you've got those kinds of bugs, gremlins in the system. I'll keep trying to work those things out as we go along. Yeah, I think I'm seeing what's going on here. There's something feeding back there. I will get that figured out, and hopefully we won't have any more issues going forward. Coming up next at 7:55, let's talk about the most American thing that you can think of. What's the most American thing that you can think of? And Camellia Peterson will join us to break down the Little Mermaid controversy even more at 8:09 this morning. You don't want to miss a single minute of the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit SaluteHeroes.org to learn more.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
Had enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts, on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors. What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
As the world faces the challenges of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Lions recognize that kindness matters now more than ever. And Lions and Leos are finding ways to continue to serve our communities, including ordering food delivery for healthcare workers, holding story time for children online, and providing surgical masks to medical professionals and first responders. Empowering us to do more, Lions Clubs International Foundation has provided nearly $2.5 million in grant funding for COVID-19 relief. And that support continues to grow. For more than 100 years, in times of need, Lions always find a way to help those around them. And after we emerge from this, we will be stronger than ever. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Good morning. It's 7:55. You're listening to the Wake Up America show and watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. Boy, we were having some technical difficulties there. And, you know, it's sometimes things like that happen. And that's how it feels. And, you know, you get like 20 messages from people who are telling you, oh, no, boo, boo, boo. People are texted in at 573-319-1586, and they're all just laughing like crazy at you, and you're just doing your best to try and survive. But I did figure out what the bug was in the system, so hopefully we won't have to worry about that anymore, thankfully. We've got lots of great show content left to go for you. I can't wait to have Camellia Peterson on the program. She's going to be joining us here at 8:09 to talk about the controversy surrounding the woke Little Mermaid. But before we get to that, real quick, let's watch the video that sparked a lot of this controversy. This is Matt Walsh yesterday, who was getting raked over the coals for his opinion on the Little Woke Mermaid. Take a listen to this.
All right, Max Winter says, a black actor playing the Little Mermaid really is a case of white erasure. All forms of art, including fairy tales, are meant to be reflections of the author's experiences and observations. Hans Christian Andersen probably based the Little Mermaid based on experiences he went through in his home country of Denmark, so it makes sense that most of his characters would be white, since that's the world and the people he was surrounded by. Yeah, I'm given the way that we deal with these sorts of issues, I'm sympathetic to that. Now, I would be fine, like we talked about yesterday. We don't have to rehash the entire thing, but if we all agreed that race in films and TV shows, especially fictional stories, don't matter, and we're going to take a kind of colorblind casting approach, and it doesn't matter as long as the actor is good. If we could all agree on that, then I'd be on board. And as I said, that's basically what it was for many years, what it was back in the 90s.
But that's not how it is. Because
we are led by very, very stupid people.
Yes.
Very, very stupid people.
Yes,
we
we are.
cannot let it continue.
We cannot let it continue. I completely agree. What's the most American thing that you can think of? You can text the show at 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you. One listener texted in. They said that they thought the most American thing was a citizenship ceremony. Yeah, if you've never been to one of those are really exciting. Definitely get one of those under your belt. As a good American, it's good to go and see what happens when people become American citizens legally, right? Because if they don't come legally, you know what we want to do.
Build that wall. 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 Build that wall.
Our listeners texted in and said, I'm lucky to be born in the United States, but I'm aware of many who are immigrants who are better citizens than those born in the States. Should we get rid of automatic birthright citizenship? How dare you, sir?
From now on, it's going to be America first. Okay?
From now on.
America first.
That's right. From now on, it's going to be America first. I don't know about this. Get rid of automatic birthright citizenship.
Oh, my God, bro.
hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy. Get your goddamn ugly ass on.
I hope you're enjoying the show so much this morning, even though we've got the gremlins. We are rocking and rolling now. Camellia Peterson, who's going to be live on camera for the first time, not in studio, but remotely. Our show has just been getting all kinds of awesome upgrades, and with the upgrades sometimes come those kinds of technical challenges. You don't want to miss a single minute of the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupamericashow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Diddy's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every $1 we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
any real world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
got a political news story for you that you might not have heard about yet because mainstream media was too busy covering clickbait and hate porn. The Biden administration this month has asked the Supreme Court to not take up a citizenship case for the people of American Samoa, despite there being a rare moment of agreement among liberal and conservative justices on the court and motivation to take up the legal issue. Here's a little background to make it all make sense. After winning the Spanish-American War, the Supreme Court decided a series of cases known as the Insular Cases, which established that islands annexed by the United States during the war for economic control of the oceans, such as American Samoa, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and others, would not have the Constitution's full protection because, as one justice at the time put it, their residents were, quote, alien races, differing from us. Last term, justices at both ends of the court's ideological spectrum criticized those rulings. In fact, conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch went so far as to call the Insular Cases fundamentally flawed and shameful. He said he hoped the court would soon overturn them, citing Fitse Manu v. United States multiple times, a case regarding citizenship rights for American Samoa, a people who pay taxes and serve in the American military, but cannot vote, serve on juries, or run for state or federal office. Yet the Biden administration does not seem to agree. In recent weeks, the administration has asked the Supreme Court to not take up the case because, as they say, it is up to Congress to decide citizenship matters, as it has done with Puerto Rico, Guam, and other territories. American Samoa's political leadership agrees with the administration, saying that its, quote, unique status contributes to its ability to maintain its traditional cultural practices and distinguishes it from the other 50 states and other territories. The court will likely decide whether to take up Fitse Manu v. United States during its new term this fall.
Good morning. It's 8:06 in Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm Austin Petersen. Welcome to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. My next guest is a fan favorite. She's joining us now on the video stream, and she is Camellia Peterson. Good morning, CJ. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Doing well.
Good, good. Glad to have you here. Little Mermaid's trailer from Disney was released, and it seems like it's fairly unpopular, where 1.7 million people disliked the trailer for The Little Mermaid in just one day. Is it because The Little Mermaid, the new Little Mermaid, the live-action remake, because she was black? Or is it just because people are tired of woke politics in general? CJ, what do you think?
Everything is stupid anymore, right?
Yes,
Oh
but
my
why?
gosh.
Why is it stupid?
Well, I think Tony was right. People are getting tired of a lot of the constant remakes, and usually they're not very good. There's very few exceptions to that. Now, qualification here is not like I watch a ton of movies, so I don't watch the remakes.
Yes.
I might not have seen the original. I have seen The Little Mermaid, though.
Mhm.
Will I watch the live action? Probably not, and not because I don't necessarily like The Little Mermaid. It's fine, but I'm not going to watch it. But yeah, it's one side is saying that it's woke, and the other side is saying that it's racist. And really, I was just reading an article where somebody's point is like, it's all stupid, and it's The Little Mermaid, for crying out loud. And if any Disney remakes are any indication, it will barely even qualify as a film. That made me laugh. But yeah, and actually this thing that I was reading from this author, who was basically saying everything is stupid, he makes the point that this is where we are. It's, you've got to be either this or this, and it's impossible to remain neutral. You're either opposed to the idea that the mermaid might not be necessarily white, or you're excited to watch it out of principle because you don't want the racist to win. So yeah, it's stupid.
We're tuning in right now. We're talking to Camellia Peterson. She's the editor of the libertarianrepublic.com. That's my website. And we're talking about wokeism in Hollywood films. But I mean, I think Tony was right too when he talked about just how unoriginal everything is. I mean, how stupid do you have to be that it's just, you just take a movie that was a cartoon, make it live action, and just make the character black. But I mean, there is a bit of a double standard here, because I mean, what if we were to make, a movie about a black character, or what if they made a movie about George Floyd and it was starred Ryan Gosling? People would be outraged, right? But I mean, there are some characters from our literature that are supposed to be white. They can be played by other characters. That's fine. I've been in theater. You'd play characters from other races. But I mean, when you look at some historical, allegories, some of these characters are meant to be white. They're supposed to be white. I don't get angry if somebody else plays them, but I mean, it does feel as if there is a desire from the left to erase the white race. That's called the white replacement theory, but from some, that's supposed to be a racist conspiracy theory. But I think that many on the left are racist and do want to exclude whites because they claim it's some kind of a historical justice or retribution. Do you disagree?
No, I don't. In fact, we've talked about this before. There's that organization, I can't remember what it's called now, but these women who basically you can pay gobs of money to go have a dinner where you are, lectured about how you need to feel bad about your whiteness and you need to come to terms with this. And people actually do it. They pay people, they go and have dinner and pay people to shame them for the color of their skin. That's craziness. But that is what's happening now. And I think, that happens with everything. And like I said earlier, this is the culture. When we talk about the culture war, the stupid thing about the culture war is like, you can't be neutral. You have to hate the other side and you have to take one extreme or the other. And there's no middle ground. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, no kidding.
I do think, I agreed for once, I agreed with Matt Walsh. If we were just to all agree that, the color of anybody's skin for whatever, didn't matter and everybody was fine and happy with that and just cast characters, for their qualities and their acting ability. Fine, let's do that. But we're not doing that.
No kidding. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Camellia Peterson about the controversy swirling around the new Disney Little Mermaid movie. But I mean, I think that there's a feeling that people can't empathize with people of other races, but that only goes one way. So, the idea of having a Black Little Mermaid, for example, is all about, inclusiveness. And I read a story about a woman who talked about her daughter and how excited her daughter was to see the trailer because she said, wow, mommy, she looks just like me. And how good that made her feel that she could, feel like she was part of your world. But I mean, silliness aside, there's an empathy there, right? So like, Black people being introduced to Hans Christian Andersen and the story of the Little Mermaid, is a way to, get them involved in the culture. But I mean, what I feel like sometimes, Camellia, is that it's like, it doesn't work the other way. Right. Cultural appropriation, if you will, is only allowed when it goes in one direction. Am I right?
You're right.
Yes, of course. That's what I wanted to hear this morning. Thank you.
Of course. And I understand. Ahead. Well, and I understand this. I mean, I think it's human nature to want to be able to relate to something. And, I think that on a subconscious level, we don't think about, relating to something as far as, somebody that looks like this. But I think that, I think that subconsciously we do that. And it's not that that is racist or anything. I think that's just that we always relate to things that we are similar to in whatever way. And so I can empathize some, with, a little Black girl who's seeing something that, looks like her. And I get that. But I think that, it's been overplayed so much that we're making it a bigger deal to our children than it needs to be. And I think that makes it then, that makes it larger in their minds. And they think that that's the connection for them. I think that's not good.
Cecilia Harden over on the live stream says, why doesn't Disney or other networks elevate fairy tales of other cultures? I would love to learn more African folklores. Jamie Marie Pope says, she doesn't look like anyone. We don't have tails. Tolly Owens said, make them all frogs since we're all supposed to be going green anyway. Who can hate on a bunch of Kermits? I liked the picture. Tony Allegro made me think of it with his comment in the stream. I liked the meme that was it the Babylon Bee or someone that posted yesterday that Ben Shapiro was going to be doing a remake of Black Panther where he was going to Wakanda Forever gang. Why do I feel like they wouldn't be able to get away with that, but I sort of feel like somebody should, just to troll, just to see what would happen. But I feel like if they did, they would be canceled forever and ever and ever.
Well, we're just going to go translucent, and then we'll be, that'll fix everything. Because Matt Walsh and science. How can you live underwater and be white or black?
Well, yeah, you'd be translucent. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Camellia Peterson about the controversy swirling around Disney films. I mean, it is tired. I know that you're not really into like the whole cultural milieu. You don't sort of invest much of your personality into, intellectual properties of entertainment, figures and things like that. But a lot of people do, Camellia. I know it's hard for you to identify with it, but I mean, when I see some of my favorite characters as a kid being destroyed or being ripped apart for some cultural agenda, I guess you could say I'm offended. It's offensive to me. So, I mean, people that don't respect culture. Here's what it's like to me. Here's how I would put it. You know how they were ripping down the monuments all around the country? It feels like that to me. In some ways, it is a cultural destruction in the same way that the destruction of monuments is a destruction of our culture. The new Lord of the Rings series is about tearing down the statues that were created by J.R.R. Tolkien. So to me, having invested a portion of my, I guess you would say, personality into some of these characters that people that, characters that I grew up with, it's like watching, a statue to something that I really respected and appreciated that gave me meaning at a time in my life being destroyed by people who have no historical reference. It's like the barbarians of Rome. It's like the sack of Rome by the barbarians, and the wokies are the barbarians. Does that make sense?
Sure. And I also think that, when we're talking about tearing down statues and historical significance, and we talk about how that, we villainize historical figures, like they want to villainize Thomas Jefferson because he owned slaves. We also, culturally, there's just been this inability on, the left for the most part, to separate out, that people are flawed characters, or we're all flawed, and some people are more openly flawed than others. You don't always see everybody's flaws, but someone like Thomas Jefferson, massive contributions, to our history, and a good person in many ways. And yet he did some things that, were not necessarily morally right and were wrong. And there are a lot of characters like that. I think about Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, brilliant writing, lots of good things. But, there were some parts to him that were really not good either.
He actually, I think he fought for the South for like 2 days before he threw his gun around and deserted. Yeah, no joke. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that about Mark Twain, but go ahead.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Mark Twain joined the Confederacy, and he was in the Army, I think, for 2 days, and then he's like, "Screw this," and I'm out. And he threw his gun away and ran off.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Yeah. No, I think there's just, we ignore, we choose what we want out of things, and then we ignore, the good that comes with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're speaking to Camellia Peterson. What do you think about this? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Somebody said, would they cast white actors for black characters, or what about a fat ass mermaid next? Is that...
That's coming next.
We don't have any representation on the. We don't have any fat mermaids. Camellia,
thanks a lot for that visual image. Now, it's like
Camellia, before I let you go, you had a big rally here in the Capitol yesterday. How'd it go?
Went really well. It was a good day. Of course, everything is always unpredictable when you're talking about doing anything with the legislature. So we got there, brought people from all over the state. We brought some, many of them brought themselves, and it was a long drive for some of them, 3-4 hours for, just a few hours at the Capitol. So we were talking about the income tax cut proposal that they are calling this special session for. And so we probably ended up with between 80 and 100 people there. The unfortunate thing is that our slate of speakers were several senators, and of course, as soon as we started, the Senate went into caucus. So,
oh no,
we improvised, and Secretary of State Ashcroft did a great job filling in. We had several House members that stepped up and spoke to the people. The people were excited. I think it went really well. I did learn something new, by the way. You might find this interesting.
What's that?
Representative Adam Schwadron was talking with me, and he said that this is actually an extraordinary session.
Oh.
So apparently, if the governor calls the legislature into session, it's an extraordinary session. But if the legislature calls themselves into session, it's special. So I'm all on board with calling this an extraordinary session, even though there will probably be nothing extraordinary that comes out of it. So
highly doubt
I don't
it.
know. We'll see if they actually get this done. But they were, Scott Fawn on Twitter was saying that in typical Senate form, they've got a bill and now they're arguing over who gets to sponsor the bill. Problem is that bill is like tax credits and tax cut all together, and I'm like, okay, because King Solomon has some advice here. You need to split that baby
Split the baby. That's good stuff. Camellia Peterson, we always appreciate that you never split the baby here on our show. Thank you so much for coming on for your first interview on camera. It went great, and we're certainly grateful for your time. We'll talk to you again on Thursday or next Tuesday.
Have a great Thursday, everybody.
Have a great Thursday. Have a great rest of your week. Camellia Peterson, thank you so much for joining us. Boy, that was a great, great interview. Let's give her a big cheer, a big round of applause. What do you say? Thank you very much. And if you like the interview with Camellia and you're watching us on Facebook this morning, make sure give us some likes, give us some hearts. We certainly appreciate that. Did you like the interview there? Yes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, but you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, I see we've got about 15 people over there this morning. I would be certainly grateful if you would give us a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at AP for Liberty so you can get more great comments over there. And if you're not going to subscribe, I guess, why not? Help me understand. Send me a text at 573-319-1586. When we get back, we've got more great content left to go here on the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen at wakeupamerica.show.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here. And we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
The Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen. This show has been a huge venture for our family, so we would love it if you could join us.
I believe in liberty, and I believe in Austin's ability to spread the ideas of liberty. Do you?
I want to ask you today to join Petersen's Patriots with a pledge of $17.76 a month. Help us to stay cancel-proof so we can spread the message of limited government across the country. I joined Petersen's Patriots myself, just in a little different way. Visit wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and make your pledge today.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate. Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
Speaker Pelosi's husband, Paul, made a big investment in chips just before Congress votes on a bill that would give $52 billion in subsidies and tax credits to the chip industry.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No.
And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back. Do not come. Do not come.
Have you ever received a royalty payment from a company that you later oversaw money going to that company?
You know, I don't know as a fact, but I doubt it.
Well, here's the thing is, why don't you let us know?
Good morning. It's 8:26 and we are live in Jefferson City, Missouri. I'm Austin Petersen. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen. Glad to have you here. I went over to YouTube and monitored some of the comments this morning. Certainly grateful to have our listeners over there. We were getting some questions. Some people were asking about, the commercials. They were like, it's not the typical kind of a podcast where you have, just spoken word commercials that come every once in a while. Well, I'll tell you this, my aspirations for this show, for those of you who are fans, my aspirations for this show are to build it into something like a real TV show and a real radio show, so that the possibility for us to be syndicated and to be placed onto potential networks around the country is there. And you're going to need those commercial breaks. This is also a way for us to monetize the show in a little bit of a different way. So it's not your typical podcast. It's more like a traditional television or radio show. So that's why we have those kinds of commercial breaks. It also, because I'm doing the show by myself, helps to give me a little bit of a break. If we have a studio guest who needs to get into the studio, I can help them get into the studio, get out of the studio, and do a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, run to the bathroom and do different things like that. Helps me out. So that's why we have those commercial breaks, also as a way to help monetize this show. And if you're interested in advertising on this program, the audience keeps growing by leaps and bounds every day, especially over on Rumble, where we're having unbelievable growth. I'm glad that our listeners suggested that I live stream over there. If you're interested in advertising on the program, you can go to wakeupamerica.show.com/advertising and send us an email to let us know what you'd like to advertise. And we have very low rates and get in front of our massively growing audience. Thank you so much for watching the Wake Up America show. Here in a few minutes, we're going to speak to Will Duffield from the Cato Institute to talk about his article about how government colludes with social media to crack down on free speech. It's called jawboning against speech. Government officials use informal pressure like bullying, threatening, and cajoling to sway the decisions of private platforms and limit the publication of disfavored speech. The use of this informal pressure, known as jawboning, is growing. This is from a study that was done by Will Duffield. He's going to be joining us on the phone here in just a few minutes. You can text the program this morning at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you. And at the end of the show, I'll read all your responses about the answers to the question, what is the most American thing ever? What is the most American thing ever in your mind? What is the most American thing ever? Send me a text at 573-319.
From now on, it's going to be America first, okay? America first.
That's 573-319-1586. You can send us a text there at 573-319-1586. What is the most American thing ever? We'd love to hear from you. Somebody texted in actually earlier about the Little Mermaid and said fat mermaids equals manatees. Very funny. Another listener texted in this morning and said deep fried bald eagle sold at county fairs everywhere. The most American thing ever. You can send us a text again at 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you about that. What is the most American thing ever? Asking for a medium drink and getting a cup the size of a 2-gallon bucket. Or walking out of 7-Eleven with a 50-gallon drum of Mountain Dew. What do you want from me? It was only 10 cents more. You can text us again, something that is the most American thing ever. A McDonald's inside a Walmart. A McDonald's inside of a Walmart. I don't know, deep fried triple cheeseburger with a deep fried apple pie? Yes, that is an American thing. Or how about excessively large vehicles as the most American thing ever? State fairs. Yes, the fairs are great all across the country. Lots of small and medium fairs all year round. Eating a pork chop on a stick, one of my favorite things to do, as well as a good tractor pull. Hulk Hogan. Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, be true to yourself, true to your country, be a real American. Yeah, flex muscles. Another listener texted in at 573-319-1586 and said that the most American thing ever was a bald eagle with diabetes holding an AR. The only way that I could improve on that was if the bald eagle was on one of those automatic chairs or hover rounds. What do they call them? That they're going around Walmart with a little hooked up to an air tank. Bald eagle with diabetes going around with an AR-15. When we get back, we're going to speak to Will Duffield about how big tech and big government collude against our freedoms on the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Hello, my name is Kelvin. Welcome to Frenchy Bush. This is my Didi's website. Now I've decided to speak to you with my real voice for the first time ever to tell you about how cool Frenchy Bush is. But I've decided that this is the perfect opportunity to share with you. Frenchy Bush is a good website. You should follow us on socials. If you like Frenchies or any kind of bulldogs, me and my new brother George are going to try to make your life more fun.
Hello, I'm George. My neck isn't really thick yet, but it will be. We are so glad you're here. Please ignore my floating eyeball. It helps me spot predators who might be approaching from the sides.
Didi made Frenchy bullshit to review things that he uses on me and my brother to tell you if it's good or bullshit. Take this collar, for example. Didi really likes it. Didi said it's really handy because us Frenchies got thick necks. Need something really tough. People think Frenchies are little, but if you look at us from below, you can see we are really pretty buff. Beefcake. Yes. Look at my creamy thighs and chest. Yes. You like that?
Big brother, please focus.
Frenchy Bush. Please follow us for more great content and read the Frenchy Bush blog for more fun and cool stuff.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every $1 we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Any real-world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning. It's 8:35. It's time to rise in freedom. Welcome to the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen, broadcasting from the heart of Missouri, the heart of America in Jefferson City. Glad to have you here. My next guest has introduced a new term to me that I was interested to read. His name is Will Duffield. He's joining us on the phone right now to talk about his article about how big tech and big government collude against our freedoms. He's joining us now. Good morning, Will. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me and showcasing my paper.
Yeah, your article over at the Cato Institute, Jawboning Against Speech, talks about how government bullying shapes the rules of social media, and it really blurs the line between what's constitutional and what's legal. So make your case here. If you can help us understand it, what does jawboning mean, first off?
So it refers to government bullying intended to compel private actors to take actions that the government, as a matter of law, can't. However, by threatening to use other powers the government official may have, they can often coerce a private company, in this case social media platforms, into doing what they'd like.
So an example of this might be?
Well, I think the modern age of social media jawboning was kicked off after the 2016 election when Senator Dianne Feinstein demanded that platforms, quote, do something about Russian misinformation, or she would. Another example might be President Trump threatening to shut down or regulate platforms if they didn't correct perceptions of anti-conservative bias.
Now, jawboning has been around for longer than big tech has existed, hasn't it?
Indeed, it really started out both during World War II and in the 1970s as a reference to Samson's vengeance on the Philistines in the Book of Judges, where he proclaims, "With the jawbone of an ass, I have slain 1,000 men." And so this was sort of jokingly used to describe price control efforts by President Carter and others. They were the ass, and they were using their jaw to quash the nation's banks and businesses.
That's interesting. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking to Will Duffield. His piece over at the Cato Institute, Jawboning Against Speech, How Government Bullying Shapes the Rules of Social Media, is available now. Is published on September 12th. You can read it at cato.org. So tell us, how have courts responded to challenges to this practice? Have there been any successful challenges to it, or have mostly they've gotten away with it?
So it's hard. In the past, it was a bit easier for courts to deal with when you were discussing or engaging decisions to disconnect, say, a sex hotline by the phone company. But there you have a one-off commercial decision that everyone can pretty much tell has happened. When you're talking about social media moderation, changes to the algorithm, it's very hard for the user to recognize that they've been banned as a result of government pressure on the platform rather than some platform decision or just an overzealous algorithm. So it makes it very hard to bring a case without evidence that the government has been responsible for the removal. Additionally, a lot of this jawboning comes from congressmen who are protected by the speech and debate clause for everything they say in Congress.
And one of the other challenges that we have here with this will is the fact that, there's a difference between, telling social media to do something as a government official versus asking them to do something, isn't there?
Indeed. And I think the ask and potentially a threat can independently come together to create this sort of jawboning effect. It doesn't have to be a straight if X then Y, but instead threatened antitrust action and the suggestion that it wouldn't be necessary if the platform took more action to restrict hate speech, something like that.
So what can be done about something like this? Because, we our conservative critics of libertarianism will say, well, that essentially, the snake is being tread on, right? Our Gadsden snake symbol, but the person doing the treading or the organization doing the treading is social media, and that our liberties are being restricted by social media. What can be done about this?
So I think there are a couple of solutions. The simplest are new congressional rules to restrain how congressmen engage with these platforms, and speech and debate clause aside, they can set rules for their members. They're a club. Beyond that, there are lawsuits that I think could succeed. They just need to be much more tightly tailored than some of the claims that have been brought so far. They need to relate to claims about or demands to remove specific speakers rather than categories of speech. And finally, and I think this is a sort of libertarian approach, we can build social media that's more resistant to this kind of pressure. If you look at something like the IPFS Filecoin network, because it's difficult to remove content files that have been posted to it, and there isn't one central authority responsible for it, it's much more resistant to this sort of jawboning.
So is what you're essentially suggesting there building an internet that operates in a similar way to Bitcoin, where everything is public and dispersed?
Indeed. And that Filecoin and IPFS, or the Interplanetary File System, represent a way of doing that for file sharing and storage, though not posting tweets.
Yeah, certainly something to consider. We're speaking to Will Duffield of the Cato Institute. His piece that was published this week is called "Jawboning Against Speech: How Government Bullying Shapes the Rules of Social Media." So you say that, this, in conclusion, this is not a new threat to free speech, but it's becoming more common and more difficult to combat. This is in response to a deluge of cheap speech. We didn't get into this concept of what you call cheap speech. Can you explain that one for our listeners real quick before we go?
It's a term coined by Eugene Volokh back in the 90s to describe how the internet was going to lower the cost of speaking and suddenly allow lots more people to speak than ever could before. But of course, not everyone is satisfied or happy with what everyone else is saying. And in other countries, you've seen censorship laws passed. They don't have our First Amendment. But here, even if there's a demand for censorship, the First Amendment doesn't allow it. Unfortunately, instead, we've gotten this informal action, this bullying and jawboning, almost because our constitutional protections are so strong.
If we're speaking to Will Duffield, Will Duffield's piece over at cato.org. You can read right now. I also retweeted the piece at AP for Liberty. You can follow Will as well on Twitter at Will_Duffield, 2 F's IELD. Will, thank you for that great piece, and thanks for coming on the program today. We certainly appreciate you very much.
Thank you for having me. Have a great morning.
Thank you. Have a great day. Well, that was a great piece. What did you think about Will Duffield there? He sent us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. All right. I promised you, and I will deliver. We're going to talk about what is the most American thing ever. The most American thing ever. Send us a text. We'd love to hear from you. 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. You can also call the program during the commercial break. I'll be able to take your call, and you could be in the next segment if you like. You can call that same line, that number, 573-319-1586. If you call during the commercial break, I'll be able to take your call and maybe put you on the air if you have something compelling to discuss. So 573-319-1586. Call or text the Wake Up America Show with Austin Petersen at wakeupamericashow.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun. Thank you, Ben.
Had enough yet? Do facts no longer matter? Are lies to be encouraged instead of punished? This is not our inheritance. If truth no longer matters, we will not remain free for long. This is our generation's challenge, to defend our founders' hope that we the people could self-govern if we defend our right to get the facts. And right now, we're building the only defense of free people have, the facts, on every politician, every position they held, every statement they've made, every vote they've made, and any cash they've taken. It's the real history on those now pandering for your vote. There are hundreds of young people building our defense right now, and they need your help. We all have our passions, but as our ancestors knew, when events become so foul they threaten us all, we must stand and defend each other. Please, have our backs. Join us at votesmart.org.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
It's me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
As the world faces the challenges of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, Lions recognize that kindness matters now more than ever. And Lions and Leos are finding ways to continue to serve our communities, including ordering food delivery for healthcare workers, holding story time for children online, and providing surgical masks to medical professionals and first responders. Empowering us to do more, Lions Clubs International Foundation has provided nearly $2.5 million in grant funding for COVID-19 relief. And that support continues to grow. For more than 100 years, in times of need, Lions always find a way to help those around them. And after we emerge from this, we will be stronger than ever. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Good morning. It's 8:49. You're watching the Wake Up America show with Austin Petersen at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. We've got 10 minutes more great programming left to go. All right, let's get to the fun stuff. The phone lines, the text lines are open. You can text us at 573-319-1586. The most American thing ever that you can think of. The Declaration of Independence, someone texted in. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Hell yes. Amen. I need an eagle scream sound effect in here, but I'll give you a big cheer for that one. So, yeah, we love America, baby. That's right.
From now on, it's going to be America first.
Amen.
Okay? America first.
America first. And if we can get rid of Joe Biden next year, then America will be great again.
Donald Trump, if you can hear us,
please.
Donald Trump.
Please, Donald.
Save me. Please
save us all, Donald Trump. Please. The most American thing ever.
Please save me.
Vote for Donald Trump.
Please save me. Please get these people away.
If we don't get Donald Trump back, you might as well just be voting for
China.
And you don't want to vote for
China.
Do you? I don't think so. No. And if Joe Biden wins again, then we'll know it's true that we are.
We are led by very, very stupid people.
Very, very stupid people. If only there was a way to
build that wall, 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 build that wall.
America, USA, USA, USA. One of our listeners texted in this morning with a copy of Federalist Papers, had a Federalist 51. But what is government itself but the greatest of all reflections of human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men, the great difficulty lies in this. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. Amazing the way Hamilton spoke. Inspiring, really. Thank you very much for that text. Yeah, I always appreciate the Federalist Papers. What is the most American thing ever? Send me a text at 573-319-1586. Is it this? I think some of you are saying,
no, God, please, no, 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 no.
One of our listeners texted in and says, advertising brings media to the masses for free. Noble. Yes, that's true. And they said, I love your FU to Gary Johnson, by the way. Yes, Chris Morrill, I am saving my F word for when it really, really deserves it. I know how you're feeling right now because I didn't say the F word. Yes, I know. I haven't said the F word yet on the show, but you know, who knows? I mean, I do have a sound effect that says it.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy. Get your goddamn ugly ass on.
I don't know why, but I just freaking love that thing. I'm having so much fun with my soundboard and my Donald Trump sound effects that I added this morning. I haven't used this one just yet.
You do not represent our movement. You do not represent our country.
One of our listeners texted in, Little D Trucking said, most American thing ever, 3% of freedom-loving people taking out the largest armed force on the planet to be able to live however they wanted to. Amen. USA, 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 USA. That's
From
right.
now on, it's going to be America first.
Amen.
Okay?
That's right.
America first.
Advertising is the most American thing ever. One of our listeners texted in at 573-319-1586. What's the most American thing ever? Someone said, how we use our dates. Month first, day second, year after that one. Yeah, I didn't even know for like a number of years that I guess in Europe they use what? Day first, then month, and then year. Does that make any sense at all? I don't think so. No. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. Tony Allegro over in the live stream on Facebook says, say what you will about Trump or Trump supporters, but I've never seen a Joe Biden rally that starts with people chanting USA.
Donald
That's
Trump,
true.
If you can hear us, please, Donald Trump, please save me. Please save me, Donald Trump.
Please save me, Donald Trump. Another listener texting in says the most American thing ever, rural America, getting in your car to drive down the driveway to go to your mailbox. That's very good. I like that one. Driving down your mailbox. Yes. Another listener texted in saying that on the most American thing ever, taking a rocket to the moon and then riding a moon buggy around on it. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. Another listener texted in says that when I think of America, the first things that come to mind are obesity, guns, hamburger, and an eagle. Yes. Another most American thing ever that one of our listeners texted in saying, forgetting that other countries exist. Ah, yes. Splendid isolationism. Yes, we do. We love living in America and just, yes, America. Not even thinking about the fact that there are other countries, unless it's Mexico when we want to go on vacation and Canada when we need to make fun of something. One of our listeners texted in at 573-319-1586 and said the most American thing ever is free drink refills in restaurants. I guess, yeah. So this is the thing. Now, I've only been to, in terms of like not America, Mexico, Canada, and the United Kingdom. So I went to London for a couple of weeks, back in like 2009 or something like that. And they do not give you free drink refills overseas. Like, they give you a can of soda. And if you want and it's a tiny can, right? So we're used to our obesity causing sugary drinks here in the United States, but they give you like a 10-ounce can of Coca-Cola and they don't and they don't even refill it. That's terrible. The most American thing ever, taking an Uber to a hospital because of the price of ambulance. That's just smart. Those ambulances are expensive. Another listener texted in saying the most American thing ever, Krispy Kreme's glazed donut milkshake. I have not heard of this. A fried sugary donut that you can drink. Oh my God. That sounds amazing. Another listener texted in at 573-319-1586. Good morning, Tony Allegra, said Team America World Police. America! Hell yeah! Another listener texted in saying the most American thing, grilling steaks while homebrewing beer with your kids while strapped. Absolutely. Hell yeah. I love it. Oh yeah, absolutely. While strapped. Absolutely. We love our guns here in America. Send us a text at 573-319-1586 and tell us what is the most American thing ever. Another listener texted in and said, making fun of the British at every opportunity. Yes, we love it. Just, whatever you do in America, just don't be British. Right. Being British is wrong. It's 8:57. We've got a couple of minutes left to go in the show. So we're talking about what is the most American thing ever on the Wake Up America show. Text us at 573-319-1586. An American thing, free water. I had to pay for water in the EU, says Tony Allegra. Doug Hill over in the Facebook live stream says, along those lines, what's more American than trick-or-treating in the suburbs, but the parents drive from house to house instead of walking with the kids? I never understood that. A car up on blocks in the front yard. Richard Bell, the most American thing ever. Thank you, Richard. That is a good one. Another listener texted in and said how we looked at the metric system for about 5 minutes. We tried the metric system like a kid tries Brussels sprouts and said, no, thank you, to our own detriment, America. Oh, no, I'm sorry. And that's the one British thing that I think we can hold over. Rule Britannia. Pretend you rule the waves. Yes, we do love that one. Chris Morrill over in the live stream says demolition derbies, the most American thing ever. Yes, thank you so much for watching the Wake Up America show. It's been a great show, hasn't it? We've had some great guests and some great topics. If you like the program, share it with a friend. Make sure that you are helping to spread the word. Give us a like on YouTube and on Facebook and share the stream with your friends. And also, if you love the show and you want to help support it and help the show to grow, I'm looking at hiring an employee, and I could really use your support by joining the Peterson's Patriots program for $17.76 a month. Go to wakeupamericaShow.com/support. Everybody who signs up to be a supporter this month is going to be entered to win the wooden sign behind me on the program, and we will give that away at the end of the month. So you don't want to miss that opportunity. $17.76 a month to help me to bring on staff, to hire another Liberty lover to come in here and to build an awesome network to make America great. How about that? To make America even greater than it is right now.
You do not represent our movement. You do not represent our country.
Thank you so much, Edie Vogel, Cecilia Harden, Chris Morrill, Doug Hill, Camellia Peterson, Tony Allegra, all of our friends and fans on the show. We're super grateful to have you. Thank you very much for your support of the program. We'll be back tomorrow with more Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
It's morning again in America. Our country is prouder and stronger and better.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Your printing company stinks. They charge you too much money and they don't love America enough. We've got the solution. Patriot Printing USA. Whether you're running for office, saving souls, or just need business cards that will get you the new job you've been looking for, Patriot Printing USA has got you covered with the best prices around. Palm cards, brochures, bumper stickers, door hangers, you name it, we've got it. PatriotPrintingUSA.com. That's PatriotPrintingUSA.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
Average Americans are turning into conspiracy theorists at an unprecedented rate.
Flip City Magazine was created for new converts to aid in their in-depth research along the path of absolute truth. We offer the hardest-hitting news and opinion, delivered uncensored in print directly to your door. Display proudly on your coffee table, or hide discreetly under your mattress. Flip City is the magazine they don't want you to see, much less read. Subscribe to Flip City Magazine today at flipcitymag.com.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.